Good morning, and we are in. Uh, uh, Today we're going to talk about the Lord restored many plain and precious things through Joseph Smith. In a vision, the Lord showed Joseph the coming forth of the Bible, explaining that many plain and precious things would be taken from it. And we hear that in 1 Nephi 13 through 20, 13, 21 to 29, and 38 to 42. And we've talked about it before, but remember this is um, Jesus Christ speaking to Nephi and Joseph Smith translating it. Um, some people will want to like say, well, why would this happen, or why would Joseph Smith have to translate the Bible? The Bible's been around for centuries. Um, but Joseph, think about if you had written something or had spoken something and somebody was taken out of context or um, misquoting it and things like that in say a paper or something like that, when you want to correct them, Heavenly Father is the only one that um, or Jesus Christ is the one that said these things, and he wants to make sure that the record is straight, and he's making that through Joseph Smith at this time. And we'll look at this, looking how the Lord planned to make known the plain and precious things according to 2 Nephi 3:12. If we go there, it's quite a long one, but it's good. Wherefore the fruit of thy loins shall write, and the fruit of the loins of Judah shall write, and that which shall be written by the fruit of thy loins, and also that which shall be written by the fruit of the loins of Judah shall grow together unto the confounding of false doctrines, and the laying down of contentions, and establishing peace among the fruit of thy loins, and bringing them to the knowledge of their fathers in latter days, and also the knowledge of my covenants, saith the Lord. So it's to lay down, uh, confounding the false doctrines, and laying down contentions, and establishing peace. That's what this is supposed to do, and I think it has a lot of times. And a lot of people who have gotten a testimony of the Book of Mormon, things start to make sense throughout the scriptures. At least I found that. How did the Bible and the Book of Mormon work together? And we just described that. Um, as you study the Old Testament this year, you will also study some other books. Nephi foresaw. These include, and so this is not like all the books, but this is a couple of the things. I never really thought about it as the other books. I was always thinking as something that's future, that was something that was going to come. But truly, these books came about. And there's one that's not mentioned here, um, which is the Doctrine and Covenant itself. How many times have we had something in the Doctrine and Covenants that um, sheds lights on parts of the Bible, both the Old Testament and especially the New Testament? So we've got the Book of Moses, part of Joseph Smith's translation of the Bible. It restores truths and accounts not found in the current text of Genesis 1 through 6. So basically, the Book of Moses, which we'll get into, is covering the same time period, but it's written um, more in first person. I wouldn't doubt that Genesis 1 through 6 and the Book of Moses were both written separately by Moses. One for general people. I probably, this is my own way of thinking of it. And the other one was more his thoughts on it, or not his thoughts, that's the wrong word, his experience directly, and to a greater extent, um, what actually happened to him. What was his vision like? What was he learning from it? And that's what I get from the book of Moses. And Genesis, I feel, was written as as something for people to read, um, and probably a lot of differences in that as well. And we'll find that some of them come out in uh, in the Joseph Smith translation, which we'll talk about in a second. The Book of Abraham was revealed to Joseph Smith as he examined ancient Egyptian papyri. And so again, it's Abraham's thing, and we have very little on Abraham when you think about it in Genesis. But we have a lot more. Well, we have a few chapters, but this gives a better account of why Abraham? Why was he there? What was he doing? Then various passages of Joseph Smith's translation, some of which appear in the footnotes, the appendix of the Bible, and the guide to the scriptures. Um, Here are some of the examples of Old Testament accounts restored through Joseph Smith. So we've got Enoch, city of Zion. Now remember also, we talked about that in the Doctrine and Covenants last year. So it doesn't tell about the Doctrine and Covenants here, but I think it's worth noting. So we've got this in Moses. And the Lord called his people Zion because they were of one heart and one mind and dwelt in righteousness, and there was no poor among them. And Enoch continued his preaching in righteousness unto the people of God. And it came to pass that in his days he built a city, and it was called the city of holiness, even Zion. So you can see how that really enriches our understanding of who Enoch was and what Zion was. Then we have Abraham's vision of the council in heaven. Um, so this is premortal life. We often turn to this as missionaries. Now the Lord showed unto me, Abraham, the intelligences that were organized before the world was, and among all these, there were many great, noble, and great ones. And God saw these souls, that they were good, and He stood in the midst of them, and said unto these, I will make I will make my rulers. For He stood among those that were spirits, and He saw that they were good, and He said unto Abraham, Thou art one of them, thou wast chosen before thou wast born. And there stood one among them that was like unto God, and he said unto those that were with him, We will go down, for there is space there. We will take of these materials, and we will make an earth whereon these may dwell. And we will prove them herewith, to see if they will do all things whatsoever the Lord their God shall command them. And they who keep their first estate shall be added upon, and they who keep their second, keep not their first estate, shall not have the glory in the same kingdom as those who keep their first estate. And they who keep their second estate shall have glory added upon their heads forever and ever. And the Lord said, Whom shall I send? And one answered like unto the Son of Man, Here am I, send me. And another answered and said, Here am I, send me. And the Lord said, I will send the first. And the second was angry and kept not his first estate. And at that day many followed after him. So we've got the war in heaven. We've got Jesus Christ being sent as our Savior. And all of this in Abraham um, just adding to what we understand about who Abraham was and why he was so important. And then we've got the Joseph Smith translation of on the ministry of Melchizedek, and it is quite long. I don't know if I'll go through all of it, but I'm just going to show you. I wanted to go actually to Genesis, and the reason why I want to go there is you'll see in a second. So it talks about Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought forth bread and wine, and he was a priest of the Most High, and he blessed him, Abram or Abraham, and said, "Blessed be Abraham, for of the Most High God, possessor of heaven and earth." Um, we'll explain later about why it's Abram, not Abraham, when we get into this. And blessed be the Most High God, which hath delivered thine enemies unto thy hand. And he gave tithes unto of all. Now, if you see, I've got this and he was the high priest, and a little d there, right at the top of the page. If I click on and put footnote, it has the Joseph Smith translation, and he brake bread and blessed, um, and blessed it, and blessed the line, and he being a priest of the Most High God. See, it just changes a little bit there, but it changes a lot more down here on 24 at the bottom of the page. It says, um, let them take their portion, and it has a little a there. And if we click on that, and footnote, we get this text, and we see, and Melchizedek lifted up his voice and blessed Abraham. Now Melchizedek was a man of faith, who wrought righteousness, and when a child, he feared God, and stopped the mouths of lions, and quenched the violence of fire. And thus having been approved of God, he was ordained an high priest after the order of the covenant which God hath made to Enoch, it being after the order of the Son of God, which order came not by man, nor by the will of man, neither by father or mother, neither by beginning of days or end of years, but of God. I'm not going to read all this because it's quite long, and we may get into it later. But you can see how much richer the text has come because of that. And it talks about Abraham giving tithes to him later on in here. It's a lot of really meaty, good stuff in here. And it's because Joseph Smith, um, with the Urim and Thummim and with help, with his, with the help of the Lord, was able to enrich the doctrine of of um, sorry, of what we're studying with the Joseph Smith translation. Why are these counts plain and precious to you? I think I've said what I feel, but for you, what makes these so plain and precious? As we go through the doctrine or the Old Testament, I think we should look at how these things become plain and precious unto us. I think some things become plain and precious not only because there's um, Joseph Smith gave us Moses and Abraham and new translation and things like that, but sometimes it's just the stories themselves. If we look at some of the stories that we have from Isaiah, for instance, in the Book of Mormon, and even as Jesus Christ preaches to the people after his resurrection in his land bountiful, he says, greater are the words of Isaiah. And all of a sudden, Isaiah becomes so much more interesting and not as much of a slog as sometimes it could feel otherwise, as we start to understand how precious his words are to the Lord, and also all of the things that we find in the Book of Mormon and in the Doctrine and Covenants and other places where Isaiah is quoted. And that's just one of many different places where we get a sense of plain and precious stuff that might be there, is still there, and yet we miss it sometimes if we're not without an understanding of the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, and the Pearl of Great Price, and other writings. So I think it's important that we look for those and also be open to the plain and precious things that we get from our prophets and apostles today as well. I hope you can go through the day and know that there's some really great things that we're going to be studying this year, and that you can ponder those things that we've talked about today. And we'll see you tomorrow.